Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation, and I am bringing you, well, I just want to show some of the cool new models, honestly, and some of the progress that I've made towards the Canoptic build. And it just so happens to be that this is also going to be the list that I'm going to be playing in this week's battle report. But for the most part of it, I'm just super excited to get all these Canoptic units out on the table. I am a huge fan of the Canoptic styles of Necrons. I have Canoptic Harvest. And this list that I'm calling the Canoptic Collection, I love them. I love the Scarabs, love the Spiders, love the Sentinels, all of it. And I'm very excited to see that we're about to be getting a Canoptic detachment. That's going to be really cool. Until then, this is what we got. This is what I have. And I can't wait to get it on the table. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notifications, get notified on all the content that we bring you here on the channel, including this battle report, which will be taking on one of my teammates who is a first comer on the channel. It's going to be kind of cool. A little bit of a surprise. We'll see what he's going to be bringing this week. I have some guesses, but I'm not 100% sure. Needless to say, I know what I'm bringing. So let's go over and take a look at that. All right, here we go, guys. So this is my Canoptic collection. And this is nearly every Canoptic unit that I have. I have a couple more Wraiths and Reanimators on the shelf, but this is pretty much all of it to fill out this list. Now, as I said, this is not necessarily a competitive build. The Canoptic units all kind of suffer from one minor deficiency, and that is their ability to hit, both weapon skill and ballistic skill. Now, there is ways around this with things like Canoptic Control Node or the Sovereign, but with me filling this with so many Canoptic units, and there is not any Canoptic character that attaches to any of these units, we will be stuck with one Sovereign to try to buff this army. With that being said, there is some cool, unique things that this army can do, which I'm going to try and play off of. With all that, let's start introducing the cast of characters and talk about the role they're going to be playing in our upcoming battle report. First off is the only non-Canoptic unit in the army, and that is my Technomancer. This is one of my conversions that I've been working on. That is a Canoptic old school spider with some legs that I took from a Scorpack destroyer, and just some other different random parts with the Staff of Light and the Cryptek head. He has a Canoptic cloak because of the larger base size. That's one of the reasons I converted him up. And he will have the Sovereign. So he's a little bit more durable because of the fact that he has lone operative. And he's going to be able to give the aura effect of count as led by character to units nearby. This means that they'll get +1 to hit, as well as the second part of most of my stratagems, which will play into effect for 2 stratagems that are probably the most consistent with my army. That I use the most, one more so than the other, and we'll get to those in a minute. Actually, I use the reanimation strat and the reroll failed wounds strat. The reroll failed wound strat typically on my spiders as well, and the reanimation strat also on the spiders. So those are the 2 primary ones that I use in this list a lot of the times, and where most of my CP does go. All right, now that's the Technomancer. That's his role. That's what he's bringing to the table. Now let's get over to the Canoptic collection itself. First off, we'll talk about the Doomstalkers. The Doomstalkers initially want that Sovereign nearby. They want to be able to get into better positions. They have a 7-inch move, and they want to get those firing lanes early. But losing +1 to hit because you move makes it difficult. So having the Technomancer nearby in the early goings of the game will let me get these guys into a position where maybe I can take advantage of the heavy aspect of their guns to be able to stand still and still shoot at a decent, reasonable ballistic skill. These guys, I love them competitively. Typically competitively, I have a little more anchorage behind their buffs off of Canoptic Control Node or my recent new favorite, the Silent King. This time I will not. However, I do still feel like that single Technomancer with lone operative might actually be buff enough to carry this army on his shoulders. During the early goings of the game, we buffed the Doomstalkers. Later, this guy can move along with units such as my Canoptic Spiders. I will be once again bringing 6 of them. I love these guys. This is my favorite unit in most of my armies. Like Lich Guard is up there, but I love some spiders. These guys are a surprise factor because of some of the tricks that you're able to do with them. Number one, having the ability to reanimate when a model dies can make these guys extra resilient. Being near the Sovereign and spending a command point on the reroll wound strat can make their particle beamers super, super strong. These are blast. They each get 2 of them. So simple, fast math on this. If you shoot a 2-man squad into a squad of 20 models, you are getting 4d6 plus 16 shots guaranteed. Also with the Sovereign nearby, these guys will be able to hit on 2s with those particle beamers. So there is a lot of random weird play that I absolutely love out of these guys. They will most likely be escorting that Technomancer to start moving across the field to be able to push the game ahead. These will probably be a lot more of my aggression. Now, a Canoptic list. Oh, and these guys also give off Feel No Pain. They're also vehicles, so they can tank shock, and they have a reasonable combat profile. So these guys are going to be very pivotal on how I move in making my offensive. Now, I have these guys, and like I said, I'm taking Canoptic, so we'll move over and talk about the Scarabs. Scarabs this edition are not as strong as they were last. Last edition, the 5-up invuln, as well as being able to take 9 of them, was much, much stronger than right now, where they're very easy to kill and much smaller in squad size. However, there is a couple of things these guys do well. They are still cheap, and they can score secondaries, and they're a unit that you don't necessarily mind if it's bypassing its turn to just go do an action to complete a secondary. They're quick, although they can't breach walls and stuff. They are still quick. And they can explode on any target, which is actually really, really useful and can be used multiple times over a turn. The explosion is very interesting. Having the spiders, having the scarabs, having the scarab hive ability to reanimate scarabs into these units, I have yet to have that really occur in a game where it was mattered that it really mattered and was really effective. Usually the scarabs get swept way too quickly. But this is another piece to be able to have that offensive. I can still use the scarabs to bog things down for at least a moment while my spiders are set to do other things. So we hit the spiders, we hit the scarabs. Let's segue over into the Reanimator. So the Reanimator, as everyone knows, I believe full-heartedly, this is a Necron auto include. This is the first thing you bring into every single list. There is very, 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 very minute few situations where I would say, okay, I guess you don't need a Reanimator. And those armies are very few and far between on how they work. A Reanimator just does work. 12-inch aura to be able to give you an additional D3 when you reanimate. Let's go back to that spider. You spend a command point, you're near a character, you get D3 plus 1 wounds back. And if that isn't enough to bring your spider to full health, you then get an additional D3, which will probably kick you over to be able to take another spider, which means any more multi-damage weapon that's coming in there to try to finish off that last spider has to go through a 1 or 2 wound model spider first. And sometimes they run out of steam at this point. And now the spiders live, and then you reanimate in your turn, the additional D3, boom, you got both of them back. Reanimators are great. I mean, I could sit here and make another video just about how awesome Reanimators are, but they're great. And if you don't run one in your army, you are seriously, seriously missing out on a phenomenal unit. Next up, now, this is going to be more into, let's go into my offensive. So first we have a 6-man squad of Wraiths. The reason I took these guys as a 6-man is because of the Scarabs being able to do secondary objectives, engage on all fronts, stuff like that. Although those Scarabs are OC 0, they still can do secondaries. The Wraiths, I want to be able to get them onto an objective for that to be their fighting position. These guys can breach through walls. They are 3 wounds apiece with a 4-up invuln, so they're still pretty durable. Their attack profile is not as good as it used to be, and they are significantly weaker, especially considering the lacking of certain rerolls or buffs to their weapon skill to make them stronger. And significantly reduced attacks. Last edition Novak Wraiths were very powerful, but again, that was a game that had a lot more killing into it in general. Now the Wraiths are still very durable. 3 wounds, 4-up invuln is nice. Losing a bunch of them early could risk entire squads getting wiped out. Losing a bunch of wounds, I meant early. If I take them in 3-mans. By taking them in a 6, I'm a little more reliable that someone's going to live. And that's going to give me the ability to start reanimation. Again, with the Reanimator, every time I roll a 3, I'm getting a guy back, or because it's D3. So the Wraiths can rebuild themselves if they get hit early and take an objective in a corner and be a very strong play in a corner. Since I have a good spread across the entire board, but I don't have, I'm not a dedicated center or flanking army. So it's a matter of where do these guys and where can they play off of. Wraiths are very quick. So if I have to change my game plan, I can get them out of it. 6-man means I have time to get them out of a bad situation. Also on offense, other than the spiders, which we'll probably be pushing with the Technomancer mid-game, we have a Canoptic Tomb Stalker. This was the first centipede that I got. This is the ones with the gauze slicer. So he has 8 shots with lethal, and he has a combat profile, strength 6, AP 1, 2 damage. His ability is the ability to heroically intervene for 0 command points. Not sure if that's ever going to really be relevant. Heroic intervention seems like a very niche situation. When you remember it and it happens, it can be cool and it can be game breaking. But it's still very niche. That how often are you going to actually get that ability used for that 0 command points, as opposed to using it on another unit for command points to effectively pull off the maneuver. That's why I mean, so it's so niche, is because I don't see too many scenarios where this model is going to be that game breaking in a sense. Now, he is toughness 9 with 9 wounds and a 4-up invuln. They're tough to move. They're monstrous creatures. And they will be good to also push onto a flank and protect on the flank. Hit this one being able to have a little more damage in combat than my others. And the others I talk about are the 3 Canoptic Tomb Sentinels. These are the guys with the big exile cannon. D6 plus 1 shot blast. Strength 10, AP 2, flat 2 damage. Their ability is to shoot on a unit on an objective marker. They get plus 1 to their AP. If they get shot at while within range of an objective marker, they basically have Armor of Contempt for reducing the AP by 1. So these guys can hit an objective relatively hard, clear most of it shooting-wise, and then go take it, and then make it mine. And now when the enemy tries to remove them, you have 3 to 4 large body, toughness 9, 9 wound bodies with a 4-up invuln that you have to remove that heal D3 wounds every command phase, sitting on that objective that you have to clear off. Now, guess you could probably move enough guys on there to just simply take it. These guys are only OC3 each, if there's 3. So if you have the Sentinel there too, you have 12, otherwise 9. But these guys can hit. They can hit hard shooting. Combat is a little lacking, and that's why I'm glad to have the other Sentinel there. The combat aspect is less important than the gun aspect, but the Sentinel's combat potential could help pull these guys out of combat to keep them alive longer. As we weaken certain units and take their strength and size down, it's going to be harder and harder for them to take out the Sentinels in a reasonable time frame. All right, so there's the list, and I guess you could probably see why I'm very, very excited about my Centipedes. I've waited a long time to run these, and I've seen at some tournaments when I've seen them run. I love the model there, but it was always one, just one. And I always looked at them and I was like, man, it just feels like if you're going to do it, you have to run a bunch of them. So I like to see if the Sentinels on an objective can do work. At 345 points, 115 for each, that's not necessarily a bad deep striking company, because the Sentinels and the Stalker deep strike, which I didn't mention. This is a very, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't see a lot of armies doing that. Maybe it doesn't work, and that's why. But you have a toughness 9, 9 wound body 3 times over, 4 for the Stalker, clogging on an objective. That might be worth looking into a bit. Now, if we're bringing the Stalker along, we're jumping up a bit because he's 130 points. So we're getting into 475, 500 points for an objective. How reliable is it? If it's very reliable, that's worth it. 500 points to control an objective marker outside of your table quarter for the entire game, or your deployment zone. That's a great value. 500 points for that. The Wraiths. The Wraiths will try and take another one, and they're tough to move as well. Again, coming with a 4-up invuln. So the 4-up invulns be very strong with this army. My Doomstalkers have a 4-up invuln. The only thing that doesn't have invuln is the Scarabs and the Spiders, realistically. So we have a lot of tough to remove presences in that factor. So I'm really curious, wanting to see how the Wraiths can do in this role, which is different than roles in the past where they've been more aggressive frontline units. Now they're going to be a flank, a ghost, if you will, a Wraith, to slide around the outside and take an objective. Sentinel, Stalker, my Scarabs, they're going to just appear on the battlefield and try to assault in a point that is lightly defended to medium defended, and just hit it so hard that I can crack it, break, and get the Centipedes on the objective and have them nest there. And then see what we can do with the Spiders and the Scarabs, moving them across the board, maybe play into center. Maybe they'll help support that flank with the Sentinels, or maybe they'll go over and try and help the Wraiths. A lot of plays off them. They're not the quickest unit, but they have decent enough range support that they can follow up and finish clear an objective, which has been a role that I've used them in many armies to start a sort of be a Zamboni of sorts, coming in after the game's been played and clearing the ice. So that is the list. After this week, Lane and myself and many others that will be appearing on the channel are actually going to start to go more towards the competitive realm a little more again. Lane and myself will be hosting the first of the Tim's Nation title and setting our first champion of on the channel, so we can start moving forward with that and having these competitive bouts between factions. At that point, you may see some units that you wouldn't typically see because they do well against another faction, but this is all going to be served up to you in a tournament style play. So any questions are always welcomed. Any input on some of these lists is also always welcome. And even going into it with challengers and stuff like that, looking at certain little things, going, hey, maybe you wouldn't look at this unit normally. We take all the feedback. Love it. So I think that's about it. I think we covered everything. This game this week, it's going to be pretty cool. I can't wait to get all these Centipedes and Sentinels and Scarabs and Canoptic units, oh my, on the channel. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again soon.